Hello, everybody, and welcome to my new podcast, Benu Rising Stories of Death and Rebirth. So, this is a new podcast, another podcast, and this podcast has the topic of this podcast, the stories that I want to share here, and the people who I want to invite are about the topic of crisis and transformation, and crisis as a chance to rise and to rise into our true authenticity and to rise out of our rut maybe also. And in this today's first episode, I want to share obviously about my story of transformation, which I can actually tell multiple stories of transformation. I am just right now as I sit here in a moment of crisis. I am struggling. I am like in the middle of a big transformation, which hopefully you can all please send me light heated will hopefully resolve in a very good and positive way soon on Monday. Today's Friday. I have to move out of this place on Monday. I don't know where to go. I have no clue, and I am scared. So this is the situation I'm in right now. You can hear my voice sounds weird. I hope it will last for this episode, because I just was really sick. I think 2 days ago was the first day where I couldn't do at least a little more than just lie and sleep and stare at the wall and meditate. I will probably edit this video quite a lot, because I will probably have to cough in between and sneeze and blow my nose and all these things. I hope you can still hear me. And I was this is not the perfect moment to... I wanted it to be perfect, right? I wanted to look nice and feel nice and all that and be super motivational. And then 1 hour ago, I thought why not do it today? Because what better moment to start a podcast where you talk about crisis as when you're in the middle of a crisis. And so I thought let's just I want this podcast to be real. I want it to be honest and open. Of course, as open as I want to be and people who come here want to be. But for me, the topic is, it is one of the most important things that we start to be vulnerable with each other, and not only show each other as everything's awesome and great, and especially in the spiritual world and with coaches and all that, we very often get this impression that people have figured it all out, and honestly I don't know anyone who did. I know awesome people, really, really awesome and amazing and inspirational people, but nobody figured it all out. If we figured it all out, we wouldn't be here. Because then this would be problem solved. And then you would probably press the repeat button and will be beamed up and then start over on a new level or on a different planet, or I don't know what. So this was one of those moments where I would probably edit because nobody wants to hear me cough like crazy. This is the reason why I think it's so important to share from the heart and share about the moments of crisis and the moments where we were super fucking desperate and did not know the way out, and where I evolved a lot from my path, and I went through many moments of crisis, and again I'm in the freaking middle of one right now. I cried today already. I was freaking out actually today, really panicky, which is rare for me. It was very common for me when I was younger, I want to say when was 2017? Anyways, 2017 was the year of change, but before that I was like freaking out about almost everything. I had panic attacks. I was suffering from severe depression for 20 years of my life. So, and I was like a different person. Like, honestly, I was just like a different person. I was definitely not, I mean, on some level, I was always the person you see right now, but on another level, I really wasn't. I was full of fear, and in a situation like this, I would probably not have survived. Oh God, this is like a lot of pressure. I don't know many people who would be chill in a moment like this. Anyways, maybe I will even share a little bit more. Did I already say? Yeah, I think I said a little bit about this moment of crisis, but I want to focus actually on an earlier moment of crisis, like the big crisis, like the dark night of the soul moment. That was in my early 30s, 33, the year of change. And where I finally, after everything just seemed to become worse and worse and worse and worse, finally saw the light and healed myself from severe depression in 2017. And I want to share that story and just like also give you an overview. I have this channel, Soul Vessel Mysteries, for quite a while. Oh, maybe I want to say my name. My name is Benu. And I've had this channel, like, on my business, Soul Vessel Mysteries, for quite a while now. Even though I would say I really started to really focus seriously on it, like only for a few months, like since last November 2022. But yeah, I never really introduced myself so far, and I think it's quite important to know who you're talking to, right? Or who you're like watching, or also if you want to book readings or sessions with me, then from me personally, it's always quite, I don't want to say necessary, because I have like a good vibe. Like, if I'm getting a good vibe from a person, then I do not necessarily need to know all about their background, but it can definitely put a little more trust into it, or it's just nice to get to know each other. Right? I like that. I like to know people. I like to know the real person, not just like the washed up version of oneself, or like what like we present the world, and when we are all dressed up and look nice and don't have a cold and our voice sounds nice, because I'm actually a voice alchemist. And right now I'm not so sure. Again, I had to take care of my throat and my nose. As I said, I will edit this video probably multiple times, so don't be surprised. So, about the podcast. So, like, this is what's going to happen in this episode. I'm planning on bringing on really amazing people here. I already have like a list of people I want to bring on here, who also, will share their stories of big transformation. I want to focus for now, like, more or less on the the biggest moments, like the moments that made us really change our ways, and for a lot of us, especially the people who work in the field of spirituality, who became coaches, maybe this is like exactly that point where they shifted into that opened up to spirituality, opened up to alternative healing modalities, and saw the light. It's like, I'm not sure who else, like, who knows. I'm like kind of like referring to the Blues Brothers movie. I don't know who knows that, who is still like old enough to know that movie. But there is like this moment when, I think his name is Jake, I'm not so sure, not all sure anymore, but he sees what's his name? Like, this musician, I actually not really a big, the music was awesome, but I don't really like his attitude, let's just put it like that. But he see this amazing musician actually, like, on the stage, and he's like, Jesus H tap dancing Christ, I have seen the light. Like, that moment is what I'm looking for. And before that moment can happen, we often go through serious struggle, serious freaking fucking struggle, and pain, and things, you know, like, yeah, like when things really are freaking hard. For some people that means illness, for some people that means death, like the death of a loved one. And yeah, and so before I start with like really sharing about my story, let's just finish that thought. The thing, like why I think it is so important to share authentically and honestly about these moments of crisis is because that is the moment when we can relate. All right, so what helps me a lot is to hear other people's stories, like the authentic, the real stories, and how they, because then I can relate, you know, like then I can, this is similar than to what I experienced, or there are at least some similarities there, and that's how they got out of that situation, or that's how they managed. And so like one of the most important intentions for this podcast for me is empowerment. I want to empower people. It's like actually one of the main values that I have, also because I have been struggling with that so much. And the situation that I'm in right now is also exactly connected to that topic. It is all about me, like taking my power back, and realizing that I actually am capable, that I am powerful, and that like things like that. And especially, you know, like if you have a history with mental crisis, for example, or like how do you say that, like mental illness, then there's a huge storyline about victimhood. I don't know how to say that differently, but in that, connected to that topic, mental illness and victimhood is very, very, unfortunately, very connected. And I will share about that too in just a few minutes. And it's so important to get out of that mode, even though that is also valid, you know. We feel like victims because they, like, for a reason. But it's so important to at some point leave that story behind and to realize that we are powerful, that we can make things change for ourselves. And and that is why this is like the most important intention for this podcast: empowerment. And also there are a lot of, you know, like I took a lot of sessions with practitioners. I went to therapy and all that, and that is all really important and supportive. But it is more important actually to start to realize that we can work on this on our own, and then we start to do that. And also we are the ones who make the decision to change. Only we can do that. We decide to whom we want to open up. We decide whose help we want, whose support we want. Like, you know, like kind of like what practitioner, what doctor, what therapist we want to go to, what kind of therapy we want to try for us. And this is all us. These are our decisions and our responsibility. And it's very, very important to understand that, because that is the moment when we switch the narrative. And that is the moment when the wheel starts to turn into the direction that we actually wanted to, like want to go to. Give me 1 second, Annie. So the name of the podcast is actually goes in alignment with that, because so my name is Hannah Benu, but I picked that name. Actually, so Benu is not my legal name. My first name was always Hannah, and there is no other name that I know of that I ever had than Hannah. I only have one first name, Hannah. I mean, there's probably, if I had a second one, it would probably be the second name. Anyways, my name is Hannah, and Benu is not my legal name. I picked that name in 2018 actually. In 2018, right after, or right in the middle of the process of transformation, or like right after I healed myself actually. I picked that name because Benu The Benu is the name of a bird, an Egyptian deity actually. In English it is with a double N, so it's like almost the same but with a double N. And the Benu bird is the bird of death and rebirth, the bird of creation. I'm kind of having troubles with the D. Oh, my nose. So the bird of creation, the bird of the sun, it's basically kind of like the Egyptian version of the phoenix, like before the phoenix was, or like the, I don't know, the example for the I don't know how to say that in English. I'm German, by the way, for those who don't know me. I'm like originally from Germany, so sometimes I'm struggling a little bit with the English language or with language just in general. Oh, also Mercury is retrograde. And there he is. All right, so that is like the reason why I picked that name. Also, my first business was called Benu. And yeah, so like it is like the name of transformation, and or connected to this bird who's also, I think, connected to the story of the world, the creation of the world, and is called also like a self-created being, which I find very interesting and nice. I might make an episode, or like, you know, like a little video just on that bird, because it's quite interesting, and I think it's quite interesting. But yeah, so like now you know why this name and what my intention is for this podcast. Is there anything else that I want to share before I start into my story? Yeah, maybe just like to say a little bit more on that, because it's just like also like, you know, like comes full circle with what I was talking about earlier. So Benu is like a self-created bird. So I have actually a quote here: "He who came into being by himself," and that is like, you know, like going back to this message of empowerment that I want to give, because it's us who are changing. And we can go to as many practitioners or readers or healers or therapists or doctors or whatever as we want to. It is us who are actually making the change. And practitioners like me or other people, like a lot of my awesome friends and colleagues, we can support, and we can support massively. And also therapists and doctors, and, you know, like whoever you want to be supported by, can be of great support and of great help. But it is you who makes the change. So, and that reminds me of the Michael Jackson song, The Man in the Mirror, actually. Yeah, so like looking into the mirror, and it is us who are making this change. All right, so this for the podcast is finally starting with like I started with this is the first episode. So I will finally start with my story. Oh my goodness, I have to take care because it's also kind of like exhausting, and I have to be careful not to exhaust myself, because I have like the times I'm in right now are really challenging, and I need energy for that, for whatever might come within the next 3 days. Knock on wood for me. Send me all your support. I really need it right now. I really need it. Thank you. Okay, so I was like making a lot of notes about my story, and basically it kind of like ended up to be just like more or less like a timeline of my life. And then I thought maybe that's not necessary. But I want to give you at least, you know, like some details. So this episode, I want to focus on the transformation, like the big night of this, the dark night of the soul, the big dark night of the soul. After that, my life really changed into a different direction, obviously, not without more challenges. But as I already said, like in the beginning, somehow, even though these challenges, I would say, get way heavier and way harder, I guess I'm being more graceful with moving through them. I don't want to say that I'm, like, that is not messy, because it is. And I also don't want to say that I'm super graceful all the time, because I'm not. I'm really not. I like cry, and I'm like yelling, and I get angry, and I like, why, God, why? And I have these moments, right? But yeah, it's all part of the freaking deal. And I guess, like, because of all the things that I experienced, and because I've been on this path now for quite a while, I think it's 6 years now, I think. I kind of know on some level, when I'm not super triggered and in the middle of the shit, then I know that somehow this will work out, even though I might not always like the way that it works out. And I also know and learned that, especially I think in my case, it's a lot about the long run. So I'm not a person who is like, some people just get immediate results at some point, and for me it takes a little longer. But yeah, maybe I will share a little bit, because it's also part of understanding your story and what your deal is, or why you're here, and what the things are that you kind of like learn, right? And like also like what your challenges are, because that's actually kind of like the same thing. So like the challenges you attract, the topics of the challenges also show you where your gold lies, and what you will master at some point. And that's different for everybody. That is also why it is awesome to share these stories, so people can relate. But it's also, like, everybody has their own story. Everybody has their own story, their own pathway, their own challenges, and their own specific way to move through them. And even though we can really learn from each other and get inspiration from each other, and that is really super important and awesome. But the most important thing is to learn to listen to your own intuition, and to listen to what you are being told, what is right for you. And yeah, that can be very, very different. Okay, so to just give you a little overview about who I am. So I will try. Oopsie, my computer wants to shut down. No. I'm not done yet. I just wanted to start. So, more or less, I will try to keep it short. Let's just see how well I will be doing with that. So as I said, I've been moving through a lot of challenges and moments of crisis throughout my life. I always have been, those who already know me, maybe that's how I will start. So I have a business called Soul Vessel Mysteries, and I am a voice alchemist, a sound healer, and I do sound healing through my voice, through using my voice. Again, maybe not right now. I'm sending out all the love that I can right now, but usually my voice is a little prettier. But sometimes it's also not. Anyway, so I'm like healing with my voice. And yeah, I will not go into the details on how I do that. And I'm giving readings, card readings, so like tarot readings and psychic readings, and also healing sessions. Even though I'm like still working on the offerings, I did learn a lot about like a lot of different healing modalities throughout my life. But especially the last 6 years, I tried tons of stuff, like from de-armoring, gestalt therapy, family constellation, shadow work, inner child work. That's like kind of like basic, because otherwise you cannot really heal from my perspective. What else? Like tons of stuff. And so I'm continuing that, because I mean there are a lot of amazing modalities and tools out there, and they all have their validity. Is that the right word? They're all valid, like they all have a reason for like existing. And so I'm not, even though I did get trained in a specific technique called metaphysical anatomy technique, and I have been, like, my first business was like based around that technique, but then I changed and I felt not really in alignment with only doing this specific technique anymore. So I changed and I wanted to get into sound healing and into voice alchemy and all that, and like basic, but that is like the technique that I was really like trained in, took several trainings in this with this modality. But I am not promoting, like, I'm not promoting any modality, more or less, like, because like I'm more like sharing all the information that I have about all the modalities that I tried and that I find valuable for whatever kind of reason. And then you can decide if something resonates and you want to try something. But I'm not like a promoter of that is the one technique that is like so amazing that it will help every person, because I cannot know that, because, as I said, every person is different. So to say that again, even though this is about my story and I have like quite a cool story, this can be, you know, like the techniques that I will share about in this podcast might not be the right ones for you. You have to decide that. You have to decide what the right techniques for you are. So, because I cannot know that. I don't even know you. And even if I did know you, it would still be you. I could make suggestions or something, you know, like everybody who knows you, no matter who that person is, all they can do is make suggestions, but you are the one who needs to decide what is right for you. And that is really, really important to understand. Really, seriously freaking important. Okay, so that is kind of like what I do right now. So like now I combine all of these things that I did and create most of the time. I'm like doing sound healing right now, but I also want to do workshops. That's like kind of like also like dependent on the place I'm living or like on many other factors. But I'm really looking forward to doing that. I'm also offering holistic singing lessons where that is like also like, you know, where I'm combining classical singing with a holistic approach, or like with a spiritual approach even. Nobody has to be spiritual to take these lessons, but like what I know from self-development, from my experiences with self-development and expressing yourself authentically and healing. So that is what I do right now. But before I went into the field of spirituality and alternative healing modalities and also voice alchemy and sound healing, I was actually coming from, I want to say, a place of creation, which we actually all came from. But I was like very, very creative as a child already. I was singing, like always using my voice. So that's like really important. That's also a story that I could share at some point, a story of transformation for sure. It was also a long path until I came here, to get here, to get where I am now. But so I was really into the arts and into singing. I had to take a little break just in case I have like a little different energy right now. And that's what kind of like what I did. I took, you know, like I was always singing, taking singing lessons, being in plays at school and all that kind of stuff. And then I pursued a career in also like the field of arts. So I was studying theater and media and literature at a sweet tiny university with a lot of cool people. And then I was working at a theater in like a big theater, or like a bigger theater in a small town. I was working as an assistant director and also was like directing my own plays at that place. However, I was always, like since my early teenager years, I was struggling with depression. So when I was like around 15 years old, that got really serious, even though I was not diagnosed. And that is also like interesting and common for let's just say older people. I'm 40 now. Just turned 40 like a month ago. And which is not old. But, you know, like I'm saying this because I know that the awareness about things like that is rising, and so people have the chance to get help earlier, also because of the internet. Because there we can also find very, of course, also like a lot of bullshit. And as you know, like let's just talk about the bullshit factor for 1 second. You can find bullshit every freaking where. You can find bullshit in the internet. You can find bullshit in the spiritual field. You can find bullshit in the medical field. You can find bullshit every freaking where, because that is how our world operates. Okay, that's like how it's created. There's not one field where there are only geniuses at work. You will not find that. So, you know, like I'm saying this because there's a lot of like talk about restrictions and stuff, and I don't want to use fancy words right now because I don't want this video to be able to be shown and looked at and watched. But you know, like there's a lot of discussion about like restricting things like access to things on the internet. I'm like missing a word right now. And there's also, of course, like a lot of skepticism about spirituality in general, esoterica, and alternative healing modalities, practitioners, gurus, blah, 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 all that. And that is all, you know, like be skeptical. There's absolutely nothing wrong. Or maybe not skeptical, but be discerning. Be discerning, but be discerning every freaking where. So just saying that, okay? So because there's bullshit everywhere. Yeah, as I said. All right. So, yeah, so like, but now we have the chance to, you know, like people have the chance to, because the awareness is rising about things like that, about mental health and mental illness. And so people have the chance to get help earlier. They also have the chance to get fucked up earlier, unfortunately. So, when I was like 14, 15, so like when I was like looking through my old diaries, I actually thought, like, I will say a little trigger warning for everyone who knows the topic of depression. You also know what kind of topics are related to that topic. Okay, so, and I will mention those. I will most probably not get too deep into the whole what depression is about, how it feels like and stuff. I will not get too much into that in this video because it's already really long. I will most probably do a separate episode on that one because it just deserves at least one separate episode. But I will mention things, okay, as I will be doing right now. So if you're very sensitive to specific topics, just be aware of that. But also, again, because there are also like sometimes topics about, you know, like people say, yeah, I have a trigger there and I have a trigger there and we shouldn't talk about these things. No, sorry, dude, but we need to talk about these things. That is the only way we will be able to overcome them. We have the chance to overcome them. Of course, it's, you know, like it always depends. So it's good to be respectful. That's why I'm saying trigger warning, because there are topics that can, you know, like you don't want to be caught off guard with them usually, but it is important to talk about these things. Seriously important. Super freaking seriously important to talk about these things. All right, so when I look into my, you know, like old diaries, I actually realized that was also like, I think maybe in 2016, 2017, I was going through my old diaries and I realized that already at the age of 13, death was like, and like the you know, like the, not only death, but like suicide was like in my awareness. I had that, like it was coming up. And I was actually quite surprised and shocked about this when I found that out, because I didn't remember to be depressed that early already, with like 12, 13. But yeah, that's how it was. And when I was around 15 and really like got into like my teenage years and puberty, that hit me hard. Oh my God. I mean, there was already stuff going on before, but but like around 15, it got really serious. I would also say in retrospect that I would have diagnosed myself with like definitely borderline symptomatic. And I think a lot of people who know me from that back that time, or from that time, would probably agree on that. Like my friends from that time, most they do. And I was like, I had like extreme behavior, very extreme behavior. I was very unwell. I was desperate. I was very, very sad. I felt super helpless, and despair was like, the feeling of despair was one of the most prominent feelings or emotions that I had back then. And despair, I would say, was also like one of the main emotions that, or most relevant emotions when it came to the depression, the topics of the depression and the cause of the depression that I was dealing with back then. So and I only back then, I only had like kind of like two states. So I was even like, when I was outside, I was like presenting myself as like super outgoing, super expressive, like talking all the time, very loud, often like like talking too much, like really like too much for other people, being all over the place in a way, making jokes, being like the class clown and stuff like that. I also had another side, but I think this was like more what I presented to the outside world most of the time. But that was, of course, not like being super happy and super fun and blah 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 blah. But that was, of course, not how I really felt, and that was like the other extreme. So like this seriously depressed and like sitting in my room just wanting to be dead, or like not like being super helpless and not knowing how to get the fuck out of this situation. And also I already also noted that like I wrote a lot. I was writing a lot earlier back in those years, like stories and all kinds of stuff, but also a lot of diary. And I was even writing about this thing that I was like not able to experience like a balanced middle ground kind of thing. I was either going to one extreme or the other, so like deep into the depths, into the on the bottom of a hole, or I'm like was like pretending like in a hysterical state actually, or histrionic. I'm not really sure what the right term is. So yeah, and what I was doing in order to deal with these things was, of course, very, very unhealthy. I was drinking a lot of alcohol. I was also like smoking a lot of marijuana, and I got into very unhealthy relationships, or something that you could call relationship. And it was really not good for me. It was obviously not helpful at all. And but yeah, like I was like really struggling, and I was really like desperately looking for something that could give me this feeling of being held actually. But of course back then I did not know that it was that what I was looking for. It's like this, in German we have this word Urvertrauen. It's like this primordial trust, like having trust that you are held, having trust in yourself, knowing who you are. I didn't not know who I was at all. And yeah, so like, and there are many different stories I could tell who would that would be would explain that in kind of like funny ways, but also sad ways. But yeah, I was like inventing myself onto other people, whoever was in front of me. I tried to be what I thought they wanted me to be. Back then it was maybe a little bit different, but like I think that kind of like was my pattern, definitely my pattern, kind of like always, but especially after I turned 18, I guess after my nodal return, I guess, for the astrology geeks. But I'm not so sure anymore. That just popped into my head right now. Maybe there's like a correlation there. Yeah, so I was really, really looking for this like guidance, or like this feeling of, I know what I'm doing here. I know why I'm here. I know what I want. I did not know any of those things. I had no fucking clue why I was there. So, and everyone, I think, who suffers from depression, maybe, you know, like depression, I think there are a lot of similarities for the people who suffer from it. There are similar symptoms and stuff like that. But of course, there are also differences, also in the root, of course. But maybe you want to look at that, if that there, within just what I just said, if there are similarities with that, because I have the feeling that this is quite common. I will just give you like one image that I was like, when I really gained awareness about this depression and what it was, and also like got into the healing of it. This image popped into my head. I actually really also know when, but I had this feeling, you know, like it was like this feeling like being in space, floating around in space all alone with no attachment, like nothing is there, and not in a good way, the attachment. Actually, it's quite interesting because I was back then, I think that was 2014, I was reading 2 books. One was the Tibetan book of death, or I think it was not, anyways, like something like that. It was not the original one, but like another one. I don't really know. But and the other one was, damn it, I will look it up actually, because I always forget. It was from Robert Musil, an Austrian writer, and the name of the book. All right, so the English translation is The Man Without Qualities. I did not read it to the end. It's like a massive book. It's awesome. It's amazing. It blew my mind, especially because I was also like reading it very, very slowly. Anyways, but it's an amazing book. It's really, really quite extraordinary. I would definitely recommend it, even though I did not finish it. But I was reading those 2 books, and somehow, maybe that's not so important. So I was reading those 2 books. I think I'm like getting a little, you know, like I'm always like, oh, this is interesting to talk about. This is interesting to talk about. But I guess it gets a little bit too complicated. But when I was reading about these Buddhist or these Tibetan ways of being, it reminded me a lot about how I felt with depression, like that there is no meaning, that there is no reason, and that there is nothing to be attached to and stuff like that. But of course the depression felt like was like that, but not in a good way. So like it was like the dark side of that philosophy somehow. It was quite interesting. And while I was reading this other book from Robert Musil, I suddenly saw myself falling, like falling through space. And this was like, it was scary. And so I actually, that was one of the reasons why I quit reading that book at that time, because I was going into a major episode again. And it was not helpful for me to read this book at that moment in time, even though I would definitely recommend it. But it was mind-blowing. It was really mind-blowing what was discussed there. But I had the feeling I would lose. I had this feeling like losing ground underneath my feet. So, and I wanted to have that ground. And even though now I like slowly find out that in a way everything is always about surrendering and letting go, but it has to be step by step, right? Or it's like at least a little more comfortable. So yeah, that's how I felt like in my deep moments of depression, like being lost, just being completely lost and alone in space. There's nothing there. There's no reason why I'm there. There's no end in sight. There's nothing. And you're just drifting or floating around in this endless black nothingness. And that did not feel good. And also, like another hint already, I will get into this maybe deeper in another episode, as I said, but it was a lot about healing. The depression was a lot about connection in every kind of sense. Connection to this planet, connection to my body, connection to people. And connection comes from being seen and from being there and seeing yourself. And now we come to the path of healing and self-healing and what that means. If I talk about healing, I always talk about self-healing, is about really acknowledging how you truly feel. Because that is, in this moment in time, who you are. And that is also, I believe, the path of enlightenment. You know, like all these teachers talking about being in the now, this is what being in the now means. Being fucking real. Being real about how you feel, how you really feel. Not denying anything, not sugarcoating anything, not talking yourself out of it with like nice affirmations that can help at some point. I'm not saying that it's just, you know, like nothing to, you shouldn't do that. There's always like a flip side to these things. But the most important thing is you cannot get to where you want if you cannot see where you actually are. And in order to see where you actually are, you have to be honest. And that means you have to allow yourself to feel all the fucked up shit that you are actually feeling and that is stored inside your body and wants to be felt. Because all of these feelings are connected to a part of yourself that desperately wants to be seen, acknowledged, and loved by you, and therefore being taken back. So yeah, that is kind of like, that is healing. That is how healing works. And that is like also how all the modalities that I know of and that I find valuable work. It is that was like a word that I'm missing right now. Acknowledging, seeing, validating. There's like another word. Why is it slipping me? And yeah, it's like about these things, like seeing what is, being here now with what is. And that can be really hard, and that's okay. That is okay. We all have a path. It takes, you know, we're going step by step by step. And it's not about shaming ourselves for that. It's not about shaming each other for that, for sure. Like a lot of shaming and blaming in our society right now. Not the topic for this podcast, but definitely for another one. I want to talk about that. Not helpful at all, unfortunately, to anyone. But yeah, that is like what it is, like what it takes. That is what we are. That is the path of healing. That is like the path back to ourselves. That is the path back to who we really are and who we came here to be. And also the way back to uncovering our gifts, because I was already referring to that in the beginning. Our deepest wounds hold our highest potential. So, you know, like if you go deep into the bullshit and if you are able to go into the depths and see and really acknowledge who it is that you are, you will uncover the gem. You will take the part back that you abandoned, and by that you will become stronger. You will take your power back by doing that. You will, is there another metaphor that I can use? You will set it free, you know, you will set the things that you hid from yourself, the little gems that you packed away, you will set them free, liberate them, and therefore liberate yourself, and will be able to be more and more connected to your purpose, to who you really are. Who you really are, your authentic self, is your purpose. That is why you're here. And that is also connected to the ego, right? Like, so I'm not like an ego basher, just FYI. It's connected to the ego because, you know, like this is like everything I'm doing here is also like connected to my ego. So anyways, I will not get into that topic now because this is already very long. All right, so let's talk about my moment of crisis finally. So obviously that was already like, like that started back then, this depression. And I was suffering from that every year, like all the time. So like, but every year, let's say, try to make it like a little measurement. Every year I had at least one heavy episode where I went into a very shitty situation. And in my early 20s, I think like maybe when I was like 22 or something, when I was at university, I finally went into therapy, therapy, and also like I got a, actually my therapist was also a psychiatrist, so he also prescribed me medication for the depression and for ADHD, because that was the diagnosis that I got, ADHD and depression, some kind of depression, whatever. They are like similar. There are several different diagnoses. I don't remember the words actually, and I for sure don't remember them in English. I mean, there are differences, and those differences can be quite important, but on another level it doesn't really matter. Anyways, I was like, like I got better, I got worse. I got better, I got worse. That was like kind of like the thing. And so for the times, and that was like the time when I started to work on myself, like very thoroughly. I was studying back then, but almost all my all the papers that I had to hand in were like kind of like around the topic of psychology and self-development and stuff like that. So I was like I was interpreting famous books, but under the lens of psychoanalytical theories and stuff like that. And I was constantly working on myself and started to really get to know myself. And that, I was already also saying in the beginning, it's about decisions that we make. And that was like the beginning of that. I sat there one night, something happened. Anyways, I don't need to get into that right now. Also not that interesting or that important for what I'm about to say. But I sat there one night and I was like, okay, so I think I have 3 options now. I don't like my life. Most of the time I want to die. So even though there are also really cool things, for example, I have like amazing friends, like that's like one of the biggest blessings in my life. I have like amazing friends that help me through a lot. Anyways, like one blessing, also like other blessings. But most of the time, like this thought about death and suicide was always there. It was always there. And that's not really good, right? I mean, yeah, that's not a good sign. That's not a sign necessarily for you being like, yay, like in the prime of your life, like really enjoying your time on the planet or something. Not like more like contradictory to that. So I sat there and I thought, okay, so I think I have 3 options here. And trigger warning again. So either I can just continue like I've always done, and then that would probably mean that nothing will change, and that my life or I will stay in this shitty place and always feel shitty like that. The second option is to end it all, to just, not do this anymore, right? But I also was reading about reincarnation. I was like, well, awesome. I'm not sure that is really an option here. Because if that is true, it wouldn't really end. So I will have to come back and start all over again. That doesn't sound very promising. And so the third option was to try the fuck every fucking thing. Sorry about all the fucks. Everything that I can find to change, to really try, to really get into it. And I wrote a text back then, and I said in this text, I will go and get to know myself so freaking well. Like no one, I will know everything about myself, which is like, I wasn't aware of that, but that's a pretty big statement for a human. Because we think we know it we know ourselves, but we know shit. We know shit, like for real. Yeah, it's actually quite funny. Anyways, that's what I noted down. And that was this decision that I made. I made the decision, okay, I will start doing. I will try to do that and find things and try to get myself out of here and actually try everything. So, and then I did, and I started with therapy and medication, which was helpful in the beginning. And I'm glad because of that medication, I'm not dead. That's awesome. All right, I think I need to do this a little quicker, or I will do a part 2. Let's see, because I'm getting tired and I need to rest. But yeah, so let's just see if I can finish this up. It's not that deep anymore, or like not that much anymore, I think. All right, so in my early 20s, I started that. I went to therapy, I took medication, and I started to deliberately work on myself and get to know myself and the family things and all that. And that continued after I stopped studying and went working at the theater. I had like 2 very cool therapists back then. And I took medication always when I had to, when I went into an episode. And after that, I slowly run out the medication, or I don't know how to say that in English, and went back to normal. and then at some point it started all over again. And that seemed like a practical thing to do. Anyways, when I was starting to work at the theater, or when I was working at the theater, that didn't really work anymore because because of many things, but also like because of the workload, the massive workload. I was working 60 to 80 hours back then, and even though I really loved working at the theater and I loved a lot of things that were going on there was also like a lot of stuff that was not good for me, or actually, let's just put it, I was not healthy enough to to deal with these things that you have to deal with when you are working at the theater. And also there's like stuff that's just not okay in that business, like, yeah. But yeah, so on top of the depression, I was also experiencing burnout. And so like for 3 years, I worked for 60 to 80 hours. I had like every year burnout and several episodes, and I wasn't able to get off the medication anymore. And also on top of that, I drank a lot and smoked a lot of cigarettes. Oh my God. I was a heavy smoker, heavy smoker. I think like sometimes I smoked like up to 3 packs a day. So a lot. Probably sound like that as if I still do that. But this is a cold. I don't smoke anymore. At some point in 2013, I think, I had to make this decision to leave the theater because I was going to, I was on the point of, stepping into being self-employed as a director, and I was not ready for that. I was not able to do that. I was freaking out all the time. I was not stable enough to do that. Out of several reasons again, and I wasn't able to get off medication anymore. So I stopped at the theater, and it was very, very hard for me. It was like one of the hardest decisions because I loved working as a director. I was not out of several reasons, not a very healthy director. Just put it like that. And yes, I don't want to get into the details, but yeah, I had to stop. It was right to stop, but it was very hard for me because that's what I wanted to do. That was what I wanted to do. And then I started to, then the crisis started, basically. That was like my early 30s, and I was getting back to university just to, stabilize, learn something more, and figure out what else I might want to do. Which apparently turned out to be not very successful. Not a very successful search. Because, there were a lot of things that I thought I could do, but nothing really sparked me. Nothing really spoke to my heart and was like doing the things that I felt when I was working as a director. And then I moved to another town, blah, blah, blah. Everything just got worse. Like, it was like my early 30s, and I had the feeling all my friends are getting married, give birth to children, or have like massive progress in their workplace, in their career. And I'm like, nothing works. I don't have money. I don't have a career or a job for that matter. I don't have a relationship. I don't have a really good friend circle. I mean, I have these old friends like that I'm really, really connected to, also like from university, but we never lived in the same place. So the towns I lived in, I didn't have a solid friend circle or social circle. So that is really important, right? So I did not have that. I felt like a total loser, and I was desperately trying to find and to, like, I will do this and this will then work, and it didn't. And then I will do this and this will work, and it did not work. Nothing fucking worked. Nothing worked. No matter what I tried, it didn't work. Of course, the question always is, like, what does it mean if something works? Universe-wise, probably everything was working fine. From my perspective, everything went to shit. And I was so desperate. I was getting worse and worse. Like, my mental state got really bad. I was not coping well with the medication anymore. Actually, I had like really scary situations that were coming from the medication, actually, where I was like, okay, this is not good anymore. This is not helpful. This is not working in the way it's supposed to work for me anymore. And I was also, shall I get into this topic? Is this important for the story? I was also like treated really, really badly. I never had this experience before, that I was treated badly or judged or discriminated about because of my suffering, like because of this diagnosis. But that started then. I was like, out of many reasons I will not get into detail right now because I really want to wrap this up, and I will continue that in another episode. But I was seriously judged, and I don't know the right word for it. It's not discrimination, but yeah, like, you know, like when people have like a specific diagnosis, you put them into a box automatically. So I had people tell me, oh, that's a good story. I had people, and like professionals from the health industry, and like also cool people, you know, like not just bastards. They were also like, I also met people where I was like, dear mother of fork, that is not okay. They need to vanish from the earth, maybe even, but for sure shouldn't be have the authority and be legally allowed to treat people, because they were like really dangerous from my perspective. But they were also like really, really cool people. But they told me, you will never be able to live without medication ever again. You will never be healthy. You will never be able to live the life that you want to live. You will never be able to work a normal job. You will never be able to live a normal life. I'm not living a normal life, by the way. Quite happy with that. Yeah, for the most part. But so, and that was like, I was told, you are sick, you have to accept that. And that with the acceptance, they meant that I had to accept that I would not be able to fulfill my dreams. And that I also, like, it was basically accepting a life second class, because that's how I was treated, and I was not even treated as badly as many other people I witnessed. There is like something seriously sick about that system and about our society and the way we deal with mental health. It's seriously sick. It doesn't make people better, it makes people worse. And that is a problem, a serious freaking problem that we need to tend to. Not in this podcast episode, but we need to talk about this. This is really not okay. There's a lot of bullshit going on, and it's very, very dangerous. And actually, looking for an English word. I'm not even sure about the German word right now, but it's damaging. It is damaging, And I mean, that's not how it should be, right? It should be empowering. And of course, it is part of the thing that you, as I already said, you need to accept where you are in order to move forward. But there's a difference with like being pushed into a hole and into a victim mode, or and like being in a place of acceptance. And okay, so like I'm here right now. This is the reality. And now I can look for this and this and this option to, like make a change or to make something better or deal with it, because sometimes we have to accept certain things, right? And we don't know if we will heal. So I will also not tell you, no matter from what, I don't, no matter from what kind of illness you might be suffering, or from what kind of problem you have, I cannot tell you, oh, everything will be great, because I don't know that. And some things don't change. If you lost a leg, you lost a leg. Your leg will not come back, probably not in this life. So like we have to accept certain things, but there, like there's a fine line between those things, and that line, from my perspective, was heavily overstepped in my case, and is heavily overstepped in a lot of cases. So, but also that like happens because of our state of knowledge. And let's just leave it with that. So I don't want to make this a bash or something. There's a lot of good stuff happening, obviously. Thank God. There are really cool people working in this field. Thank God. If you're one of those people, thank you. We need that. But we also need to make some serious changes there, and fast. Fast. All right. So that was like the bottom. I felt worthless. I felt like my life was absolutely shattered. I felt like I had nothing and nothing worked, and that was like going on for like 2 years, I think, at that moment. So quite a while for nothing to working out, to be working out, and for being like really in a very bad place. And I had like panic attacks. I had a very nice place of living back then, really loved that place, but I was incredibly lonely. I felt absolutely lost. I felt desperate I cannot even describe to what kind of extent, but it was massive. I felt desperate AF. I felt so ashamed, because also like a lot of the people that I love, also like a lot of friends and family members, did not understand at all what I was going through. So I was like actually also experiencing pressure and shame and then of course guilt from a lot of people that I actually like really love. I'm not judging them anymore. With most of them, we cleared this up. And again, it's coming from a place of not knowing enough. Okay, so like that's also important, why we need to talk about these things to open this discussion up, to bring more understanding and more knowledge and wisdom into this field, so we can actually help each other and help ourselves. So, and the third thing was also like I was like self-harming a lot back then. So I was really, really miserable, really, really miserable. There were actually one person in my life back then who supported me a lot and was there a lot, and I'm very grateful to that person. Maybe I'll talk about that person another time. Anyways, a family member, by the way. So but yeah, like I don't know what I would have done without that person in my life, actually. So I was in that system, in that mental health system, out of various reasons, because I also was taking part in a training. I will not get into that because out of time reasons. Oh my God, this is so long. I think I need to cut this in half. Anyways, and at one point I said, like I was deep in the victim mode, because I was also pushed down there. You are a victim. And I also felt like a victim, and I was a victim, but I also was not a victim. I didn't know that I was also a hero. And you can be both, actually. So at one point, my rebellious nature finally kicked in and was like, no more. Thank God, because I proved those people wrong. I proved those people wrong. I don't take medication anymore. I haven't taken serious medication. I take headache pills sometimes. Also would love to get away from that, but anyway, like this is still happening. But I am not taking Ritalin anymore, which I did for several years. I'm not taking, because I don't need it, by the way, antidepressants anymore since May 2017. In January 2017, I started to meditate a little bit earlier, already in 2016. And then in 2017, I got really serious with spirituality. I got into meetings with people who practiced authentic relating, which I can highly recommend, out of the reasons I was talking about earlier in this video, about this really seeing and acknowledging where you are. You can also look for maybe radical acceptance. I don't really know much about it, but authentic relating, conscious relating, Tantra, the ground principles of Tantra, not the sexual practices, but that from my perspective comes later, but the basis of tantric practices, from how I understand it. I never went into the topic very deep, but from how I understand it, are about that meeting each other authentically, really seeing each other and ourselves, and being honest, vulnerable, and open, which is freaking hard. So that, that is, if you can find groups who practice that in a healthy way, go and do that. You will not find a faster way to heal. Because that is in relationship, and that is like the master class. All right, so if you feel safe in that, you will feel not safe because it's so much out of everybody's comfort zone, but you need to feel safe with the people there, of course, and the ground rules and all that. That is important. Anyways, so I was doing that, and then in May 2017, I think right after, I slowly started to move out the medication. So that's how I did it. I did it with supervised by my doctor, who was awesome, by the way. It was like a really good psychiatrist. Very glad in retrospect that I found her after like 2 years of looking for someone new, like only finding disastrous people. Anyways, so like I was doing this like the right way, right? So very slowly and supervised. And in May 2017, I was like taking part at an online summit. And this online summit, there was like this one woman that I came across, and I read the description of there were interviews with several people, and I read the description of the interview, what the interview and what her story was, and I started crying, and my heart was pounding, and I was like, oh my God, this is it. This is what I was looking for. And the name of that woman was Teal Swan. She's very famous in the spiritual field. A lot of people, there's like a lot of controversy around her. A lot of people hate her. All this hate always, like, people are like so extreme. But there's also like, from my perspective, massive bullshit going on like around her, but also, of course, obviously she has stuff to deal with. We all do. We all have our, our pitfalls and our shadows to work through. I think she probably does that. I can only say that I think she is giving amazing information to the public, or has been giving like for several years now, I think like 10 years or something. Amazing information. I learned a lot about myself and about healing in general and the human psyche, like a lot. And I came across her process, the completion process, which is basically kind of like a modality modeled with like the practice of inner child work, shadow work, and I would say like all shamanic practices, which is basically as I said, like healing always like summons down to that, to being present with what is, from my perspective. So no matter what modality you go to, if it works, then you will find this being present with what is as one of the principles of that modality. Whether it's being present with the body and just the emotions, like not calling them out, or like not calling them out, like not naming them, or if it's more like in a mental field or meditative kind of way, or an energy healing kind of way. It's always about witnessing what is. Anyways, I was coming across this process. I booked a session with a practitioner. I had this for the first session in June 2017. I was like, whoa, I've seen the light. I was using this technique non-freaking stop on my own, which that's like that is like really cool if you have things that you can use on yourself, like without needing necessarily a practitioner or a person to help you with. I think it can be very, very beneficial for you to go through, especially if it's very heavy topics. I would advise not to, even though I probably not allowed to advise, but from my perspective, I would, like there are topics, if you experience serious trauma, I would really recommend getting help with that, not getting into these things alone. But on the other hand, also like our subconscious usually wouldn't let us do that anyways, if it wasn't safe, or if we wouldn't feel safe with that. But it can be very, very healing to be witnessed by another person, or if you have support, especially if you're, for example, going through a trauma, or dealing with a trauma where you had like a lack of support, and it can be really cool to go through this again with somebody who gives you support at that moment, because that, like the opposite can be very healing. Anyways, it's also really cool and important for our empowerment and for really moving into it, to do these things on our own, to practice on our own. And that again depends on what you feel comfortable with, and what kind of tool or modality you feel most drawn to. For example, I'm like really into voice alchemy and singing and sound healing, because that just feels naturally good to me. But that for you, that might be different. And so I will not tell you, you have to do that, you have to sing, because maybe it's different for you. Anyways, I think I said that often enough now. All right, so I was doing that. And then I think I got, like a few weeks later, I got another session, like another guided session with a practitioner with this modality. Other than that, I was working on myself. And then, then again, I was awesome, I was like really feeling really good that time. But then in September 2017, I felt, or already in August, I think, end of August it started, that I felt, I think I'm going down the rabbit hole again. I could feel that I got depressed again. Remember, I gave up the medication, stopped taking medication, and I could feel that I was going down again. And so in October 2017, I booked another session with this practitioner. And we went to the root cause of my depression back then. And we solved that root cause within this one session. With this completion process. And since then, since October 2017, I have not suffered from severe depression anymore. Quite awesome, right? Yeah, so that shifted everything. And of course, in November 2017, I went into something that was like the next big transformation and crisis in my life. But now I had tools, and I was not on the bottom anymore. I was not, because depression is devastating, right? You cannot, the lack of motivation that you actually unfortunately have when you suffer from depression, it's just like a serious problem, because it keeps you from doing things, and that can end very, very badly. as we all know. And so even though I was still and am still with some of the topics that were connected to the depressive state, I'm still dealing with some of these things and have been afterwards. I have still not been suffering from that, from severe depression anymore. Again, this is my story. This is how it turned out for me, and that was really amazing. But a lot of different factors were like, factoring in in order to have that kind of mind-blowing and amazing result. That means that can happen. It is possible because it happened to me. And I know other people who experienced similar things. And depression also was not the only thing that where I experienced very sudden healing. So maybe I will get to that in another episode. But it does not mean that it has to happen like that for you. All right, so keep that in mind. That is how it was for me. And I was building up momentum towards this moment for years. I'm also not saying that you will have to do that. For everyone it's different. Some people, go to therapy 2 times and are suddenly healed. I don't know. Or take mushrooms or something, and then they never have any problems anymore, or something like that. Or are just like enlightened. These things happen. They don't have to happen. So don't get frustrated if it does not work in the same kind of way for you than it worked for me. Okay, so because everyone has their own path, and there is, even if you cannot see it in the beginning and if you don't understand it, there is some sense in it, and at some point you will start to understand that, and you will realize, this is what it is for me, or at least that's like how it was for me. And I tell you, I'm still suffering from stuff, or like dealing with things where I'm like pissed off because I've been working on these topics so freaking many times, and one part in me seems to be super hesitant and not willing to change, and I'm sometimes frustrated or just sad because things could be easier. Oh God. And as I said, right now I am struggling with stuff. Oh my God. And I don't know how to get out of it. I have no clue. I know I will. I don't know how. And I also don't know if the next step that I will take in order to get out of this will be a satisfying step or like a step that feels frustrating. I don't know that. I will figure it out on Monday. So I might come back on Monday and tell you, so this is how it turned out. So yeah, I think I will actually end it here. I already kind of told you a little bit of what happened later. That was like a major shifting point. That was like a big shift. And the time before, these horrible years that were really devastating. And I felt like shit. I felt like really on the bottom of it. But they were kind of I don't want to say that they were necessary, because that also sounds a bit cruel. I don't know if they were necessary, but I was honestly, for 2 years, when I moved into that new town, it was Leipzig in Germany. There was this little place. It was called, in German it was called Sinn and Sein. It doesn't exist anymore. In English that would be sense and being, more or less. I think there's probably a better translation for that. But anyways, that's the words. And this was the place where we practiced authentic relating and meditation also, and lots of other cool stuff, also family constellations and different workshops and things like that. Really cool place. But I was, this place opened up, and I was like, well, that looks interesting. But I was hesitant to go there for 2 years, or at least 1 year. I think it was 2 years, actually. And I didn't go there. And when I finally went there for the first time, that's when things changed. So listen to your intuition. Because I was judging it. Oh, there are hippies there. It's like spirituality. Everything's awesome. Blah 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 blah. And I was like, on one level, I was like this. On another level, I was like, they look nice. I mean, I don't think it's a bad place. But yeah, so I did not listen to my intuition. And I think, like, even though I think I do, and I think I do a lot listen to my intuition, I think sometimes I'm really resisting the messages because I don't understand them. And then I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. And then I don't do that. And then my suffering prolongs. Oh, when will I ever learn? I'm actually learning all the time, but slowly. Oh, so humor is also a very, very valuable gift. And you're on the path of healing, and yeah, going through all the things, all the struggles, all the hurdles, all the Anyways, now I am here. I will end this now. I hope that I could give you a little insights about who it is that you're, like who I am. And what I do. Again, I'm like focused specifically on sound healing in group scenarios right now. I'm in Ireland. If you are in Ireland and want a sound healing, tell me. I will come there and do that. That's like actually something that I really, really love. To do this in live settings or like actual settings, not only online. But I also offer them online and also in groups. Sometimes I offer ceremonies, online ceremonies. I offer I'm really tired, but I do offer voice alchemy sessions, voice alchemy recordings, which is like a healing session with like voice alchemy that is designed for you, where I like move into your energy field and give you what you need in this moment in time, or what I perceive or spirit perceives that you need in this moment in time, based on like various topics. You can just, if you are interested, just reach out and ask me. But there are like various topics we can work on. I'm doing readings, psychic readings, card readings. I'm also offering, that's new, mentorship now. If you want to develop your own intuition and your own skills and healing abilities, self-healing abilities, I would love to help you with that. And yeah, to to teach you these techniques and tools, so you can do this work for yourself, or on your own. I don't know, something like that. What else do I do? I give holistic singing lessons, and I will probably also have 2 different offerings or services for healing sessions, guided healing sessions. But I'm still working on those services, like like modeling the service, because of reasons. I think that's it. Is there anything else that I'm doing? I think that's basically it. And also now I have this podcast, and I will bring on awesome people, and I will also share more about my personal moments of transformation. And yeah, so this is it. If you want to reach out to me, please follow me on Instagram. Please also give me a like, and like share this video if you liked it, and because that would really help me and support me. And also follow me on Instagram. I don't have Facebook because I actually hate it. That's like pretty much the truth, to have anything. And I'm working on the website, but it will probably take a little longer because I'm focused on surviving right now, basically. So the website has to wait for a bit. But YouTube, Instagram, that's like kind of like where I roll right now. And you can reach out to me via Instagram messages or with email. The email address is soulvesselmysteries@tutanota.com, but it's also in the description. You can find it in the description box. And other than that, I think that's it. So rise out of the ashes and into the blue. That was actually my old subtitle from my old business. Out of the ashes and into the blue. So take a step on the path of transformation, and yeah, like try to see crisis as a chance, as an opportunity, actually, even though it's super hard when you're in the middle of it. I know that. But yeah, I hope I could motivate you a little bit and give you some ideas. And yeah, other than that, it was a pleasure, and talk to you all soon. Bye bye.